when I first started out in property management about 15 years ago, the skills for good management seem to be slightly different to what they are today. And that's probably because the knowledge of leaseholders was not as well shared as it is now. And that's partly because of the likes of Engage, there are various blogs set up that follow managing agents, and also because of the internet. So when recruiting managers many years ago, a lot of it was done on whether or not the property manager was a good egg, someone who had good bedside manners, didn't necessarily come from a surveying or legal background, but was a good communicator. Then over the last few years there's been a shift where the knowledge of the property manager has to keep pace with the knowledge of the leaseholder in many cases, because leaseholders are very good at communicating with each other and sharing their experiences, and often through tribunal cases they brought against managers. And so really there's a trend now to have to recruit the best property managers that you can. And obviously part of those, the skill set is a knowledge of landlord and tenant issues, company law, accounting, surveying, and a good dose of common sense as well. And that has to go alongside the attitude and the willingness to engage customers. Going through all that, though, you need to have good professional ethics and values as well. And a previous employer of mine, they had what they called pride values, which stand for professionalism, respect, integrity, dedication, and efficiency. Now, unfortunately, that company who I worked for didn't necessarily always deliver as effectively those values as they pledged to, and a lot of that is down to the time they could spend on a particular issue. I think those values, they do run through the core of property management. So in terms of being professional, it's about how you communicate with the leaseholders and engage with them, being respectful and understanding their problems, being able to empathise. Obviously integrity, you have to be beyond reproach, and your work has to stand up to scrutiny. You've got to be dedicated as well. There is no point in assuming that the role can be done in a normal 9-to-5 fashion. To engage residents, to get them on side, to often push forward projects and to make improvements, it takes a lot of outside working hours work. And then efficiency as well. Part of communicating is making sure that you communicate on time and deliver the message you need to effectively. And all of this builds customer confidence. We had a development that we took on from a competitor several years back, and leaseholders were all in arrears, there was no money, and it was in a pretty poor state. And what we had to do when we took on the instruction was to have a roadmap to build customer confidence. So we had to start with a series of small wins, instant improvements that we could make on day one, but also developing a wider strategy to get people paying again, so they could see that with the service charge monies they were paying over to us, even though they'd had a bad experience, that they were going to see those improvements maybe not in 6 months' time or 12 months' time, but maybe 2 years down the road. So it's very important to be able to communicate that strategy right from the outset. And in terms of doing that, they need to be smart, so they have to be specific, measured, achievable, realistic, and timely as well. And in building customer confidence, one of the things I've learned is that there are more than one right answer. In fact, there's often several right answers in leasehold. It's about perspective and finding the best right at the right time for as many people as you can. And by way of example, you can follow the lease. The lease may prescribe the rights of people to park or not park, or in terms of nuisance being caused. And you can, if you have a leaseholder causing nuisance, you can go down the legal route very quickly, and or you could choose to engage and find other methods of getting the right result or the same result. So it's about getting the best right and at the right time. And of course none of this would work if you don't tell residents what you're doing. And at Premier Estates we have a policy of making sure we write to every customer every month, and unless the client, the RMC, wishes us to scale back the communications. And these letters that we send out, they're not just about telling residents about a corporate message. It's about making sure we tell you what we've achieved following our site inspections and what we intend to do in the next month. And that way we spend more of our time not fighting customers and trying to explain what we're doing. We're freed up, our management time is freed up by being able to spend it on actually being out on site then and doing what we need to. I don't know if I've missed anything, Sian. Would you like to add anything to that, or is there any questions?
I think you've presented it from your perspective,
yes.
But actually all of this, virtually all of it, applies to residents as well who are managing their buildings. That if you're, in my case, part of a resident management company, you need an in-depth knowledge base, and the reason we run this is because many of us haven't got it. We don't come from that background. We need to have ethics and values in what we're doing, and I know places that have none of that. Sian knows some as well in Liverpool, where it's been appallingly managed by the residents. And we need to be building confidence amongst our residents. We wouldn't call them customers, but we'd call them residents. And effective communication is at the heart of what everyone's doing, and I think we'll come to more of that as we go through. But I found that very helpful. But I would like people just to think that this is only for the professional manager. It applies to all of us as well.
Very much so. There'll be people in here today who have different hats on. I'm, like I say, from a managing agent perspective, but if you're an RMC director or an RTM director or an RA chairperson, then obviously the same applies.